Hello and welcome to another episode of Sensational She-Geek live from Yancey Street. Today is Monday, May 10th, 2021, and this is episode 17A. As it is a Monday A episode, I will be doing the regular comic book pull list, and that is going to be for things for DC Comics coming out on Tuesday the 11th, which is tomorrow, and for everything else in the industry, that's going to be coming out on Wednesday the 12th. That's just going to be things that I am personally going to be checking out and I recommend. As I always say, there is a ton of other things in the industry, so if I don't talk about anything in the comics that you're interested in, check out your local comic book shop because they definitely have some suggestions for you based on other interests that you have. After I go through the comic book pull list, I am going to talk a little bit about Black Lightning episode 10. We're getting towards the end of the series as a whole year, as I understand. I'm not actually sure what the episode number is going to be that we're going to leave off the whole season, the whole series on, but I'm guessing we're getting towards the end. And after we talk about the 10th episode there, we're going to go into Jupiter's Legacy, how the entire first season is up on Netflix, and I did watch all of that this weekend, so I will be talking about that, and it will have a certain amount of spoilers, so be aware of that. And then we have Bad Batch episode 2, which also did premiere. They did the May the 4th first episode, but it is going to be premiering on Fridays. So I do have the episode 2 that I will talk about briefly. And this morning, Monday the 10th, they did finally release the Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer. Which is Venom 2, if you weren't sure, featuring, all the good stuff of Cletus Cassidy and Carnage and all those things. So I will talk about that trailer and how I feel about it. So let's go ahead and get started. I do kind of want to mention a couple of things. We went on this trip. It was my husband's birthday on Friday, so we went on a trip to a couple hours north of us where there was a bunch of comic shops, and we got some really cool stuff for really great deals. And part of me wants to brag a lot about that. And I have a lot of them here in front of me, so I'll just hit the highlights, okay? So, The Amazing Spider-Man 65, obviously that's it's pretty low in the, the whole thing. They're past 800 for The Amazing Spider-Man now, so this was way back when Stan was writing it still, so that's pretty cool. He also picked up, this is my husband is the one interested in Spider-Man and Etrigan. He picked up the Demon number 2, so this is the second appearance of Etrigan the Demon, who is the he is the demon who shares a body with, whoever it is at that point in time, and he only speaks in rhymes, which I'm pretty sure is just his choice. He chooses to do that because he's that kind of guy. He's deep. He's funny. I got this old Wonder Woman issue. It's not that old. It's a superhero number 1 on it. It was Wonder Woman 212, so it's not that old, but it's got a funny cover because it's basically Superman mansplaining the issue. I have the Defenders issues where Patsy's mother dies and where she meets Damon, although yes, it doesn't go in that order historically. 2 really cool what ifs. One is what if Loki had found the hammer of Thor, which is what if number 47, which is pretty funny. Then there is a what if the the X-Men had stayed in Asgard, and it's got Thor, Storm, and Throg fighting on the cover. I have the first appearance of Titania in She-Hulk number 9, and then really cool for me, I got a bunch of Strange Tales issues, one of which has, only one of which is actually written by Stan Lee and has art by Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby, and that is Strange Tales number 139. I'm obviously a huge fan of Clea, the character who originated in Strange Tales 136, I believe, no, 126, which was also the first appearance of Dormammu, so I don't even imagine ever being able to afford her first appearance in any condition. But her name appears in Strange Tales 146, which, of course, was the one issue. They had 145 and they had 147 at every single one of these shops I went to. And so I went ahead and I ordered that online because Clea is probably going to be showing up in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. That being the whole title of it, Doctor Strange 2. So I don't want to. I had the experience that was pretty terrible with America Chavez, who I am a big fan of in the comics. Her first appearance, albeit her first appearance, she is quite different than what she is now. I was gonna buy it, and then I was like, it was like, I don't know, $30 or something. And I was gonna buy it. I was like, no, I'll wait till next week or whatever, when I get paid next, whatever the circumstances were at the time. And I swear it was less than a week later, the rumors dropped that there was an actress who was reading for the role of America fighting Mephisto in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And then this immediately, her first appearance skyrocketed to like over 100 immediately. So I don't want it to happen again with any of the other characters I love, and Clea is one that I have put a lot of effort into learning about, and kind of studying, to be honest. So I'm really glad to get these very, very early appearance issues for Clea. These are like the first, within the first 10 appearances of her. And also, one of them, I have Strange Tales 150, is also the first appearance of Umar, who you find out later is Clea's mother. But she is a character who is really cool as well. Also, 154 is the first time that Clea's name appears on a comic cover, period. It says Clea must die. So I'm pretty jazzed about all these Strange Tales issues. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these really old, in the 130s to 50s range issues, and then I'm waiting on 146 to show up because I'm not letting an America Chavez happen again to me. I also got my husband and I, we like collecting the wedding issues for obvious reasons. The Amazing Spider-Man 20, is that right? The Giant Size Annual Amazing Spider-Man 21, which is, of course, his special wedding issue for him and Mary Jane. The first full appearance of Apocalypse, which is X Factor number 6, which was one my husband really wanted to get. One that I just think is pretty cool, the Mighty Thor 700 Lenticular variant. I really, really wanted the one that was not lenticular because it's an homage to, of course, the death of Captain Marvel, and I love homages, and I have the death of Captain Marvel and a few other homages to it. But it is, the one that is not lenticular is a second printing that was very hard to come by, so unfortunately I'll probably only ever get this one. But I still really like it. It's good enough for me right now. The Mighty Thor 345 my husband got for the second appearance of Malekith, and I believe the death of Freya, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, because it is absolutely classic, Batman The Dark Knight Triumphant Book 2. So this is just a really cool Frank Miller, obviously, Batman. We're closing in, personally, for our collection, we're closing in on the Batman stuff, so the Frank Miller Batman stuff, excuse me. So it's a really exciting one that we got to add to our collection this week. And all of those other ones. We got a bunch more stuff. I've spent long enough, I think, talking about it. For action figures, though, I just really want to say we got the Lion Cat The Will figures. Was the set that normally you see it for like $60 and up at comic book shops, and we got it for like $30. So really, really excited about. Also something really cool. First stop of the day on this comic book toy hunt thing that we did. We found, it was in a mall of all places, we found a Big Barda action figure in the box, unopened, crispy card and everything, Kirby art of Darkseid on the, it's actually Darkseid from the Kirby like actual art from the comic, but they put a little hand so it looks like he's holding the box up with Barda. It's really cool. Of course, we are huge fans of Barda. I am a big fan of Barda for the same reasons that I am of She-Hulk, and additional reasons. And that's another one I'm probably never going to be able to afford the first appearance of. But anyway, really, really cool to have gotten all this really sweet stuff. I will hopefully be taking pictures of the best of it and be putting them up on my site and my social media pages and whatnot when I find the time for that and the energy. So keep an eye out for that if you're all interested. And now that I have gone about 10 minutes of rambling about this fun trip that we had for basically no reason than the fact that I like to talk about the stuff that we did, we can get started with the comic book pull list. Yay! It's been okay. Let's go ahead and get going with this. I kind of have this I was gonna do the spotlights on representation, but there is quite a lot of that, so I just kind of, it's in order of some of the stuff is the spotlights, and then the stuff at the end is not the spotlights. But there's so much stuff here that I'm talking about, it's not really, there isn't really a point to differentiate what's what, so let's go ahead and get started here. I want to start off with X-Corp #1 by Teenie Howard. Teenie Howard is doing, I believe it is Excalibur is her other, what are we in now, Reign of X comic that she's working on. Her story, I've mentioned it a few times before, her story of how she got the job of working under Jonathan Hickman for the X-Men comics was she basically had the plan in her head. She knew about Hickman as a person, he's a motivational speaker and stuff like that, so she marched up to him, looked him in the eye, stated her plan, and said that she would like the job, or that she wanted the job, or said to give her the job, or whatever it was. And he was just like, okay, sure, because that was right up his alley. That is just, I love that story because she makes the point of that's not like what she normally would do, but she wanted this so bad that she did it, and I just love to see real world examples of women doing that. So this is going to be written by Teenie Howard, and I have the solicitation here because I don't really know how to describe it otherwise. It's basically about Monet and Warren Worthington, who is of course Angel, and they're going to be doing stuff. So here's a solicitation. As the reign of X continues, what are the wants of the mutants who have everything? Leading the charge is X Corporation, headed by CXOs. Oh, that's funny, because CXOs, okay. Monet Saint Croix. I took French classes in high school. I feel ashamed I can't pronounce that. Anyway, Monet and Warren Worthington, a duo as cutthroat and ruthless in the boardroom as they are on the battlefield. But X-Corp needs more than just its figureheads. As Monet sets out to staff their team with some of the brightest and most deviant minds in mutant kind, Warren finds himself in a tense confrontation with one of Krakoa's first allies who wants to know the truth. On Angel's wings, will X-Corp crash or soar? It's a really weird solicitation, if I'm being honest. It kind of pokes out in a bunch of different directions, suggests a lot of stuff going on. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But it is Teenie Howard, and everything that I have read by her I have really enjoyed. So I'm looking forward to getting into this series by her. We also have the DC Festival of Heroes, the Asian Superhero Celebration #1. Which for a lot of these characters was probably the only time we're going to see them until the next time they do one of these issues. So it's a happy, sad thing. I have a list of the characters here, and this is not even all of the characters that are going to be in this, but it's just it's a chunk of the characters who they have officially announced will be in it. It will be following whoever OMAC is. I honestly don't know, but apparently his identity is Kevin Cho. Tai Pham, Green Lantern, Amiko Queen's Red Arrow, Jade Nguyen's Cheshire, Kong Keenan's New Superman, Tatsu Yamashiro's Katana, Percival Edmund Chang's Grunge, the character Cheshire Cat, who I guess is someone called Shoes, and I looked that up, and apparently she's someone from Catwoman, so I should know that because I've been reading that. Ryan Choi's The Atom, and Cassandra Kane's Batgirl. So the creators on that, obviously is a great group of characters, and I know Cassandra Kane's Batgirl is being written by Mariko Tamaki, and they did have the first couple of pages of that, and if you don't want to know anything at all about it, plug your ears for a second, but basically, I'm not going to spoil, there's nothing really to spoil, but it's basically, she's writing Cassandra as mute still, right? So she's kind of, she sometimes is and sometimes isn't, depending on who's kind of writing her, but it seems that Mariko Tamaki is writing her as coming out of her muteness, kind of learning, and for the first time talking to people and speaking. And the way that she describes Cassandra's muteness and her her relationship with speaking and with words, and expressing herself in things. It was just a couple of pages of the story, which I hope goes on for a lot longer than these few pages. Really genuinely phenomenal. I am so excited to read the rest of it, and if that is the quality of stuff we're getting throughout this whole issue, obviously Mariko Tamaki, I'm aware, is a phenomenal writer. She is up there on my list of people who are currently at DC, who I know pretty much anything they write I will be a fan of. But I'm hoping that the rest of them will kind of be at that level of quality. The creators also, you will recognize a good deal of these, or at least I know I recognize a good deal of these, as really, really quality creators. So I'm hoping that my expectations will be pretty accurate on this being an excellent anthology issue that we should be having more often, as actually giving these characters a place to live in the comics. But anyway, the creators for the writers' side of things include Greg Pak, Jean Luen Yang, Amy Chu, Ram V, Alyssa Wong, Min Lee, and of course Mariko Tamaki. And then we have art by Bernard Chang, who is usually at Marvel, Francis Manapul, who is Filipino, and I know he also writes a lot. He did a lot of Trinity stuff. Marcus To, who I think is also at Marvel, as well as Marcio Takara, and then Trung Lin Nguyen. So there is a lot of big names on here that I recognize, even among the writers. I know I just kind of blurted out some stuff about the artists, but the writers as well. Greg Pak, Jean Luen Yang, Amy Chu, Ram V, Mariko Tamaki, all of those I am familiar with and who all have great reputations behind their names. So this is no doubt going to be a really good celebration of Asian superheroes, which is of course appropriate at this time of the year, as well as this time of history, I would say. So definitely pick this one up. There is a phenomenal Cassandra Kane Batgirl. Her non-Batgirl name would be Spoiler, maybe what you know her as. But there is a phenomenal Cassandra Kane art germ cover that he's done that I really, really hope one of the two shops that I go to locally will have. Either one, I don't care who it is. I want that cover because I am a big art germ fan, and I love to support the Asian superheroes in comics, Asian characters in comics, I should say. So hopefully I'll be getting that one this Wednesday. It comes out tomorrow, but I'll be going Wednesday. A few weeks ago we had the Silver Coin #1, and this week we have the Silver Coin #2. I realize that's generally how comics works. I don't really know why I started off like that. It's an anthology comic. I guess because I talked about it a few weeks ago. It's an anthology comic, but it's not how the DC Festival of Asian Superheroes is going to be. It's each issue is one writer and the same artist going around with them, which I think honestly is a brilliant way to do it. But then you have a different writer on each issue following what I guess is similar things happening in the same universe. So basically there's this evil coin, cursed coin, I don't know, that people who come across it and, have it, they kind of go crazy for various ways. The first issue was by Chip Zdarsky, who I'm of course a big fan of, and it was a guitarist in a band comes across the coin, and suddenly they get really, really successful. The music is really great. Things go really well. But then one night, when they're like jamming really hard at a concert or this crowd of people, he kind of gets possessed by the coin and he can't stop playing, and his fingers start bleeding and everything, and the whole place starts burning, and the audience is so entranced they don't even notice that they're burning up alive and stuff like that. So cursed coin, whatever. So now we're going to see this next issue. The solicitation says, in 1993, classic Mean Girls bully a misfit teen at an idyllic summer camp. When the teen reclaims her power after a violent encounter with a silver coin, what follows is the stuff of horror movie legend. Obviously, if you're a fan of scary stories, this is gonna be a good pickup for you. You get a 90s story about classic Mean Girls with the misfit teenager at summer camp. Summer camp background to a horror story. This teenager flipping identities partway through from good to evil. all of these are great horror movie tropes. So this is no doubt going to be really good. Kelly Thompson, she currently, I don't know if Deadpool's canceled or just on hiatus, to be honest, but she was doing Deadpool. She also is doing Black Widow and Captain Marvel. So if you're familiar with any of those series, that's just what she's currently doing at Marvel. She's done a lot of other stuff in the past as well. So check this issue out if you're a fan of horror titles, or Kelly Thompson, or Michael Walsh, who is the artist who's going to be going from issue to issue alongside these varying writers. Children of the Atom #3. I've been really digging this series. It is, of course, by Vita Ayala, who is a non-binary Afro-Latinx writer. And pretty much everything they put out, I don't think there's been anything that they've put out that I've read that I didn't totally dig pretty much immediately. So anytime I see Vita Ayala's name on a project, I add that to my pull list pretty much automatically. They were doing the series alongside Bernard Chang, although this week it looks like the art has switched up to Paco Medina, potentially because Bernard Chang is doing the DC Festival of Asian Superheroes. Paco Medina, guest artist on this, or potentially new artist on this, and finally we are supposedly getting the origins of the Children of the Atom, these characters, this week, aka the answer to our questions of who, or possibly what, these so-called mutant teenagers are, because if you recall, Krakoa won't let them through the gate. They don't seem to have powers all the time, but then they do sometimes, because they put the gear on and go superhero, but then, like, the Cyclops chick, she can just take her, eye thingy off, and she can just walk around without her helmet on. It's not, she doesn't have that lack of control that I guess Scott has? I don't know. One reigning theory being, well, two reigning theories, we'll go with that. One being they're clones, or somehow just genetically manipulated in some way, and the other one being their powers come from the tech itself and not actually them. So if we are getting the answer to that this week, I am really excited to find out what it is, because we've already had 2 issues of this mystery. I'm an impatient person, please tell me now. And we already have Silk #3. I had to double check this because it feels like we just had Silk #2. I guess they're really pushing this out very quickly. It is, unfortunately, only gonna be 5 issues, which I found out at my comic shop last week, and it made me very sad. But yeah, Silk #3 of 5. It's coming out this week by Maureen Gu and Takeshi Miyazawa. They have been a phenomenal team for Cindy Moon Silk. They have her in a Excellent Point in Life, which is a great crossover of stuff from her life and tropes of Spider-Man comics. So it's really honestly fantastic. I really was very sad when I found out that it's only going to be 5 issues, because I kind of feel like this is something, I do definitely feel like this is something I want to see go on for a very long time, but I feel like they're shortchanging themselves. You have this Silk series that from the get-go has been well received and really loved, and people are just digging this, and you're only allowing 5 issues. Why aren't you could make, like, why? The audience is here. Why? I do have a clip of this solicitation. Just one sentence from it is, what is the connection between gangland murders, a cat demon, and a futuristic tech company? So that's, if you're following along, that's a brief reminder of what's going on. Cindy's tied up in all kinds of potentially devastating things. So we'll see how she ends up solving these mysteries. It's a very cool kind of thing they've got going on here. I just really enjoy this series. I'm so sad they're not doing more of it. X Factor #9. This is another Reign of X book. This is by Leah Williams with artist David Baldion. To be honest, this is actually one of the only current X books that have been going on for a while. Well, I guess it's not as long as the other ones, but it's one of the only current X books that I am not slowly losing interest in. I know I spoke about Excalibur briefly and Teenie Howard just a little bit ago, but I haven't caught up on that. I'm an issue or two behind. I'm also behind on X-Force. And I think Marauders as well. Series I enjoy these series. I haven't read those. I've had them at the bottom of the stack for so long they just can push back and back and back because I get other things I would rather read. But X Factor is one that I continue to actually finish and read. Leah Williams is doing a great job. I'm not sure what the future of X Factor is going to be because there was all this weird talk about, if Polaris is going to be on the new X-Men team, she's not going to be in X Factor. I don't really see why that would have to be a thing. I feel like they could definitely put her in both places. But anyway, this issue is going to be a Dazzler concert, or possibly it's a fake Dazzler, who knows. I'm imagining it's the real Dazzler. Concert in Mojoverse to try and trap the Morrigan, who is, of course, the crazy witch in the comics who previously, she possessed Siren, which was honestly really awesome, and then she killed, all of the X Factor team, which was brutal. But again, Leah Williams is doing a really great job with this, and David Baldeón is probably the perfect artist for this. He has been doing a fantastic job drawing all the characters with their not unusual faces, but they are all different, from your standard Scott and Jean type X-Men in some way. So really great stuff with X Factor number 9. Roll X Factor, I guess. Spider-Woman number 12 is also already coming out. I kind of feel like we just had this one as well. But I'm not going to argue because I've really enjoying this series the way that I am with the last couple that I've spoken about. This one is by Carla Pacheco, whose sense of humor is desirable, honestly. It's great. I love it. And the artist on this series is Pere Perez, who has done a phenomenal job capturing all of Jessica's nuances, we'll say. The past couple of issues have really, really excelled for me beyond what even the first, 8 or so were. I feel like moving into this second arc of Spider-Woman, really, we had a very, very long first arc that kind of, I guess it was technically 2 arcs, you could say, because there was a whole thing with her brother and then the whole thing with her mother that were pretty distinctly separate, but it was all connected, and now we're fully moved on to new stuff for Spider-Woman and Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman. I have a line of the solicitation here. It says absolutely nothing about the story. I just thought it was funny. I think it's editors who write solicitations, right? So it's just funny they would even do this. It says, the most consistent action hit of 2020 somehow finds new levels that could only be attained with Pacheco and Perez's ill-advised deal with interdimensional demons. Just pull that out of their butts and put it in the solicitation. It says nothing about anything, but here it is. And it's kind of funny. That actually, I guess, goes along pretty well with the humor of the series, and I do have to say the last issue we had ended, it was the whole thing you could guess through the issue that he's not her baby daddy, he's like her boyfriend. I don't remember what his actual name is, but he's, Porcupine, I think, is his ex-villain name. He's the lamest. Jessica is so far beyond, she's working at a level so beyond what he could even fathom. I do not want to see them get married. He's been trying to propose to her. I would hate that. Oops, hit the microphone. I would hate that to happen if she said yes. Oh my god, please don't. Please don't. Even if it ends up being like the Batman situation where we think it's going to happen until it doesn't. Just don't. It makes more sense for her to just be in a relationship with him than to actually be married to him. Because, once again, this is one of my biggest pet peeves in comics recently, has been giving traditional-ass weddings to characters like Spider-Woman for, like, this. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but if they did, it would not make any sense. In what reality would Jessica Drew want a full-blown white dress in a church or in Central Park, two sides of the aisle, walking down with somebody to give her away to... What reality... I'm trying real hard not to cuss right now. What reality would that happen in? This is the woman who was not possessed, she was body snatched, basically, by a scroll for, I believe it was years? Not to mention all the horrors of how she came into this world, and how she was basically raised as a Hydra agent, and then all of reality flipped. Her whole world just completely got flipped on itself when she realized, basically learned that Hydra was not the good guys. Like, in what reality would that woman want a traditional wedding? It's not a thing. It doesn't make sense. If that was to happen, I'd probably honestly stop reading this series, because it doesn't make sense. Please stop giving superheroes traditional ass weddings. It doesn't make sense. Except for characters like maybe Reed and Sue. They would probably be the only ones who are the exception. Even Peter Parker and MJ, like, he is a magnet for trouble. Why would he want to have a full-blown wedding? It just doesn't make sense. I got way off track here. Let's get back to it. Justice League Last Ride #1 is another Chip Zdarsky project. Oh, I guess I haven't gotten to the other one, but it's the first Chip Zdarsky project I'm talking about this week. I am vaguely curious about it because I am kind of over the whole, like, Trinity in the comics thing, unless there's something really unique and interesting about it, which this might have, which is why I'm picking it up to see if it has that. The artist is Miguel Mendoza, I believe. And here is a solicitation. It says, once the most powerful group in the world, the Justice League was destroyed by tragedy and time, disbanding under a veil of mistrust and anger. Now, on the eve of the universe's greatest murder trial, the League must come together one last time. But can Superman and Batman bury the past before the cosmos' greatest villains bury them? Apparently this was a digital first series. I obviously didn't read it, because I would probably know about it if I had. I'm kind of hesitant about the whole, like, Batman versus Superman trope, because it gets overplayed and overdone and, all kinds of, negative words. But this is Chip Zdarsky, and he does have a tendency to write things that I wouldn't normally care about, but I do because he does it well. So we'll see about this. I will report on this. If it was good, I will report on this later. And then we have Batman the Detective, who is by Tom Taylor, with art by Andy Kubert, so really excellent team. Tom Taylor, if you're unfamiliar, he, for the most part, does things that are, I guess you would say, Elseworlds DC comics. Like, he did Injustice, he did what was it called? Deceased, which was over the course of several years and a couple of different series. But that's where I see him excel the most. And this is actually another non-canon series. I kind of flounder. I don't know which word to use for referencing series that don't take place in the main canon. And it's Batman the Detective. It's him in England, because someone there is killing people that he specifically has saved. The first issue, they took out a plane that was packed with every single passenger was somebody who Batman had saved. Only people that Batman had saved. And they all died, of course, in the plane crash. So, and they sent that, obviously, as a message for Bruce, and now Bruce is going to England to find out what the hell is going on. Very interesting that they kind of write this Bruce as, he's a bit older, but he is kind of a failed Batman. He is giving up on Gotham, and basically going, you know what, Gotham? You never wanted my help anyway. Screw you. I'm gonna go to England and find out what's going on. Which is, it's a bit of the Miller Batman, just a bit. But it's got obviously Tom Taylor's own signature spin that he's starting on it. So really enjoying Batman the Detective. It's only on its second issue, but I can definitely see the seeds of something fantastic in this. And I believe it is only going to be out of 6 issues, so you're not signing up for a lifetime commitment here at all. Spider-Man Spider Shadow is the other Chip Zdarsky project. It is really cool. It's basically if Peter Parker never took off the black suit and became Venom. I am a little bit behind on it. I haven't finished the issue myself, the first one, but it's really good what I have read of it. Just outed myself as being super behind on my comics. Yeah, it's really good. Chip Zdarsky does a great job. Another Zdarsky Spider-Man thing, while I'm thinking about it, that you should read if you really like non-canon stories, Spider-Man Life Story. I know they're coming out with the Fantastic Four Life Story soon, or possibly it already came out, I'm not really sure. But Zdarsky was the one to kind of start this, and then they just kind of are making the spin-off series because it went really, really well with his series. Spider-Man Life Story was basically telling Peter Parker's story of being Spider-Man through the decades, but like, you know how from like the 60s to the 90s, Peter Parker didn't really age, right? That's how comics basically work. Years go by, but they basically only go up a year every 5 to 10 years in age. You know, it's time is different in comics. And so this Spider-Man Life Story basically treated this as if that wasn't like that, as if every, year was kind of more intact. So it went through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, all of the time. And so every big story of the different eras, he kind of found a way to weave that into Peter's life and what that would be happening as he ages and goes on as being Spider-Man all of his life as he gets older. So while he's doing Spider-Man Spider Shadow right now, definitely check out his Spider-Man life story as well. It's in a volume out there. He did a lot of covers for it because he does do art as well. I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of Peter Parker. Carmen #3 is already out as well, or coming out, but it is written and drawn by Guillem March, who is a Spanish creator. You've probably seen his stuff all over DC. He's been around for quite a bit of time in the industry, especially over there at DC. Carmen has been a complete delight to read. I often talk about how you'll come across comics that are, good enough, and then there'll be those ones that by several pages into the first issue, this is something that you're going to read for the entirety of the series, and you're going to be completely in love with it for that entire time. Carmen is one of those comics for me. The main character is a woman who has just committed suicide and doesn't quite realize it yet, because she has this angel who is talking to her spirit, basically, and so she's going around as her spirit, not quite realizing that that's what's happening yet. But the thing about this comic that I'm seeing a split in the audience, you can tell what kind of person a reader is based on their reaction to the main character's nudity. Through the entirety of this series so far, she has been completely naked, except for bandages that the angel Carmen put on her wrists. What's interesting about it, from my perspective and the perspective of most of the people who I've spoken to about it, her nudity is infantile. It is not at all sexualized. It is not at all romanticized, or it does not made to look explicit or exploit her body. It has the same vibe as a baby who is naked in a photo, in the bathtub. It's that kind of thing. It seems very, very natural, and honestly appropriate for what's going on. And you will see, if you go out there online and look at some message boards and things, there are a number of people who are reading this who are made very uncomfortable by her nudity and who think that it's the artist trying to, jerk himself off as he draws this comic. which of course is a literally 180 of what I see. And people, a lot of people are, I believe, accurately seeing. So I think that says quite a bit about a reader when they have that opinion. It's kind of, I think, projecting their negative opinions about female bodies, potentially, and, patriarchal ideas of what a female body should be, look like, and present as. So I think it says a lot when people kind of think that. But anyway, I have a little bit of the solicitation here, just a sentence or two. It says, after the prior unsettling discovery, Kata, because that's of course the main character, continues her journey over the city. She will have an unexpected encounter that will bring more clues about her current condition. Because like I said, she doesn't really realize that she's dead yet. She just thinks that she's like having an out-of-body experience. This is obviously going to be a extremely emotional series as she finds out that she actually is dead and gone and she will not be going back to her body. I can't honestly recommend Carmen enough. We're getting some truly phenomenal comics here. Maniac of New York number 4 of 5. I don't know how I was so set on believing it was only a 3-issue series. But it's not, or it's going to be 5. Number 4 or 5 comes out this week. The art of this series is phenomenal. It's by Andrea Moody. The series is written by Elliot Kalin. I really enjoy it. It's the story of two female detectives with very different ideas of how to do and be a detective, trying to track down this serial killer who has been unstoppably rampaging through New York City. It's pretty wild, it's a fun series. Definitely check it out if you're into horror movies and kind of like buddy cop things, I guess. I don't want to end it on a meh note, so Wonder Woman 772 is coming out, and I feel pretty meh about it, and that's all I'll say. Black Cat number 6 will end it on this high note, is by Jed MacKay. This is his second Black Cat series, and it's so good! Jed MacKay does a phenomenal Black Cat. Whichever artist is doing it, honestly, he makes it worth reading always. Where we are right now in the series is a pretty cool point. If you recall, the last issue basically ended with her Alfred, basically. His name, his I guess his villain name is Black Fox. He kind of tricked her into going to these honestly really super cool like catacomb type things beneath New York City, and ends up summoning this thing called the Gilded Saint, which is basically like, if you can imagine like a Dia de los Muertos gilded skeleton. That's like what it was. It was so cool, and it was enormous. It comes down through the ceiling, and he makes a deal with it for his and Felicia's immortality. He will give it the deed to, what was it, Brooklyn? No, Manhattan. The deed to Manhattan. Really, really awesome. And Felicia's standing there going, what the shit, Fox? Because he didn't tell her that he was going to do any of this until it was too late, because obviously he knew she was going to stop him. So Felicia's not going to be very happy about this. She is a very grounded supervillain. I don't really know if you can consider her a supervillain these days. She's a very grounded character. There was something, I want to say that it was Marvel Divas. Possibly it was something current, where the part of the Jed MacKay Black Cat stuff. I honestly don't remember, but it was a phenomenal bit of writing, where basically somebody was offering her everything she could possibly want, including the heart of anybody she desired. And she was like, when they were doing all the money stuff, she was like, "Oh yeah, I could make this deal and get really rich." And then they bring in the love of anybody who you want, and she goes, "Oh, never mind. This is a shit deal. I know the difference between somebody loving me and somebody being forced to love me under a spell." And she, knocks the person out or whatever it was. That's who Felicia is. She's very grounded in things. She's very aware of what she actually wants and what is attainable through certain means and not through certain means. And so I think she will definitely see this deal as what it is, a dangerous, dumb idea. And she doesn't want immortality. She kind of said that as this was all going down. Again, she's very grounded. She understands that immortality is kind of a shit deal. So I'm really thinking that's what's going to happen here. And I think I do have a bit of the solicitation here again, just in case you want to know that. It says, now that the Black Cat and the Black Fox have completed their heist, what does it mean for their standing in New York City? For one thing, Felicia comes face to face with Spider-Man, and if you think he's going to be okay with what she's done, you've got another thing coming. So this is... Ooh, hit the microphone again. So this is going to be really cool, because obviously Felicia and Peter Parker have a complex relationship. They're not romantic anymore, but they have that romantic past. They are still considered friends, I suppose, and he kind of feels the need to police her because of this hero-villain dynamic that they've kind of always had. But again, this was not something that she wanted or was aware of. So this is probably going to be a conversation of him being very accusational and her basically telling him, Peter, back the hell off. I'm doing what I can about the situation. But who knows? I could be totally wrong. I'm excited to read it in any case. And that wraps up the comic book pull list for the week. Once again, this is things coming out tomorrow on May the 11th and Wednesday, May the 12th, if for things that are not DC. And again, if you have things that... there are all kinds of things that I have not talked about, so you can go check out your local comic shop, and they will give you all kinds of other recommendations. Now we're going to get into the media that I have consumed over the past... Gosh, not even that long, has it been? It's not been that long. It's going to be Black Lightning Episode 10, Jupiter's Legacy Season 1, and then Bad Batch Episode 2. All in different lengths. I think the thing that I'm probably going to talk about the most is probably Jupiter's Legacy, but... we'll see. So, Black Lightning Episode 10, this is premiering, I think, on Tuesdays, she said uncertainly. I'm just kind of going through things that I remembered from the episode, just basic bullet points here. So Lynn has been arrested. She was arrested kind of at the end of the last episode for something along the lines of crimes against humanity. Something like that. Really doesn't look good for her, and she has her daughter, Anissa, call her old college buddy, who is some kind of big-time lawyer who she may have dated in the past. She has Anissa do that instead of Jefferson, which obviously causes some tension when he shows up, and Jefferson's like, who is this? And she's like, oh yeah, it's my friend from college, and they're all cozy and lovey-dovey, and Jefferson's just kind of like the third wheel, and his wife's, date, kind of, in jail. There's clearly more to what's going on than this one incident with this lawyer guy. He obviously helped her out and got her out of jail and everything, which is great. But there's clearly more going on between Lynn and that guy than we know here. Meanwhile, the Pierces and all the metas around them, so Anissa's wife and the little tech kid whose name I can't remember, they've all been depowered. Tobias stole some transmitter from the people who Gambi was double-crossing, which also was discovered in this episode, and he had kind of had to face up to that. Tobias stole the transmitter to use with his, like, power nullifying stuff, which is, if you recall, there was the when Lynn had Gambi take the DNA stuff to see what the power of this woman was. That's what it was. That's how Tobias is depowering them. He used this transmitter to somehow use her DNA and her powers to do that. It's all very sciencey and comic booky. Then we have Jennifer, who, if you recall, is now in a different body because of reasons. She decides that the only way to get her powers back after this whole depowering incident is to electrocute herself, assuming that she's something like a car battery. And so she calls Anissa over and basically drops it like a bomb on her because Anissa is a nurse and kind of just goes ahead and electrocutes herself with zero notice to Anissa, who's left there screaming, basically, "What are you doing?" All the power goes out in the apartment, and it really doesn't look good for a minute, but then she wakes up like nothing happened. Basically, it seems that Jennifer absorbed all the energy around her, but she says it wasn't enough to get back to full power, so she decides to go into the exosphere to try and charge up again, like she used to. But the last time she did that, if you remember, she disintegrated. That's how she looks the way she does now. So it's clearly dangerous, but she sees it as the only way to make herself feel like herself again. So she does it anyway. It ends up kind of being, I don't know if there was a point to the scene, honestly, because it was like, she starts doing this disintegrating thing, and then the tech kid gets on a mic and talks to her, because, he can't just do it as speaking to tech anymore, because his powers are down too. And he tells her, "What are you doing? You need to come down from there." And she's like, "I don't know how to do this." And then she gets down and everything's fine. So I don't really understand. The scene was a bit odd. But once again, I do feel like they are kind of scrounging for content to figure out how to wrap this up well-ish in this last couple of episodes, I think. I assume these are the last couple of episodes. Then we have Anissa and her wife. They have a little discussion about what's going to happen next for Anissa and her family, and for some reason Anissa gets butthurt when her wife suggests that the good luck that the lucky streak that the family has been having, the Jeffersons have been the Pierces have been having, won't always be around, and they need to plan for possibly when that luck runs out. And Anissa gets all pissed and storms off. Why? That's a very reasonable suggestion. Cover your butt. Painkiller, I honestly don't remember what Painkiller was doing in the episode, but there was a joke about how he's claustrophobic and he's the world's greatest killer, but his weakness is small spaces. And then we have Tobias, who we find out is working on behalf of a honestly very, very insanely cheesy secret organization. Generic, rich-looking folks from various continents and parts of the world that seem like they were just massive tropes of that part of the world. It all seemed very fake and a little bit odd to be throwing in here, was what I'm understanding to be the last second before they end the show, so we'll have to see what kind of happens with that, but he's definitely their pawn, so maybe this is going to be a way that they're just going to kill Tobias off by he fails them and they kill him, and therefore Tobias is not a problem anymore and the show can end successfully. I don't know. That was episode 10, that's all I gotta say about it. Things are kind of weird as they wrap up the series, but I'm hoping the Painkiller show is going to spin out and be a massive success. So let's go ahead and start talking about Jupiter's Legacy Season 1. And this is, of course, based off of the Mark Millar comics that have kind of been going for quite a while. It's pretty easy to binge the whole season. I'm gonna spoil a good part of it now, a good bit of it. As far as reactions go, I have, of course, not read any of Jupiter's Legacy. I have seen bits of it here and there over the internet and whatnot, but I haven't actually read any of it myself. So, as far as my reaction to the show goes, I enjoyed the show for sure, but it definitely could have been greatly improved in my opinion. It seems that while it was designed after the comic characters pretty well, some things just didn't quite translate to on-screen as well, and some things were kind of missed altogether. For example, a lot of the hero scenes felt like they were written by somebody who probably doesn't consider themselves a superhero movie fan. It's just kind of the vibe I got. Just didn't seem like there was any passion or anything to it. The scenes that were that featured the heroes' costumes that were all dirtied up and their faces bruised and bloodied from fighting or whatever, it didn't look real. It looked like each spot of dirt and blood was hand placed and printed. They never looked authentically beaten down or exhausted, no matter what was happening in the scene. Like, you throw somebody in and the guy's talking and then somebody goes flying by and lands on the ground and he gets up and it just looks like the actor just jumped over there and is now running out of the script, out of the scene again. Like, it just didn't look real. Like it was legitimately something that was happening. It just all looked a little bit too perfectly faked. But on that same page, I guess, the white hair of the two main characters kind of ended up being a bit of a pet peeve for me. They're based off characters who have actual white hair, but you can see on the show, clearly see the dark roots of the hair on both the actors, who I have to actually have to actually add, Leslie Bibb knocked it the hell out of the park. I would say that her performance was probably better than what's his name who played Utopian. She did a fantastic job. Just the hair just bothered me. From what I've seen of the comic, the best translation from page to screen, though, was their daughter Chloe. I'm not sure why. I guess it was probably the costumes. They're very clean, regal costumes just didn't really work on screen, as they did in the comic. But Chloe was different. Obviously, she had her own thing going on. So she worked out okay. And since I finished the show, I have since been told that the comic more or less played out with the first series covering the modern day, what's currently happening stuff, and then afterwards they put out stuff that was covering all the origins and stories of the past, and you can kind of feel that disconnect from the show trying to squish those two plots together, where they kind of aren't supposed to be connected. It was a little odd. Normally when you have a current day and flashback plot, two different plots there, the flashback is usually used to reveal something that is coincidingly happening in the current day or modern plot line, such as, this is just an example, an orphan searching for his lost mother, and the flashback sequences are of the local butcher's wife having given up a baby that was his age years and years ago. But here, the flashbacks revealed their origin of the heroes, which wasn't actually really relevant to the plot. The most relevant thing that we learned in any of these flashbacks was that the one guy who turned evil had been their friend, and then he turned evil, but he ended up being irrelevant anyway, because when we were eventually led to believe that he had returned, this villain, it was actually their, psychic teammate who was setting it all up from behind the scenes and double-crossing them. So, again, not relevant in the flashbacks really either. So I guess what I'm saying is the flashback side of the plot was, it took about probably like 5/8, a solid 5/8 of the entire show. But the content of it didn't really actually matter to the other side of the plot at all in the end. All it really did was show them getting their powers and that they had this connection from the past, which you could easily have done through, really good writing of the modern day stuff. One thing I noticed while I was watching, so I kind of wanted to mention it here, was how many mixed couples there were, or at least how many that we were led to believe there were, but we didn't actually see. That was the part that was kind of interesting. The character of Hutch, he was the guy who had the little pillar thing who can transport him different places. He was supposed to be the son of this dreaded enemy guy, right, who used to be their friend. But he was definitely mixed, and the dreaded enemy guy was totally white, he was blonde, so he must have had a black mother. Then there was Brainwave, who was the psychic guy who ends up being the one to double-cross them in the end, who was doing it the whole time. And he was a white guy as well, but he had a very, very Asian-appearing daughter, so she, you have to assume she definitely had an Asian mother. Also interesting, I said they weren't shown. They were never even mentioned in the show. Kind of a funny thing there. And then there's also quite a bit of cheesiness, I gotta say, and quite a bit of women in refrigerators, including Brainwave killing his own daughter. Yeah, so to be honest, most of the characters were very obvious plays off Marvel and DC heroes, which, felt a little bit lazy. I get that there are certain tropes that are always going to appear, but damn, man, you had laser eyes, flight, super strength and speed, bulletproof skin. That's obviously a ripoff of Superman. Like, it felt like it was just missing a little bit of something. And I don't know if the comic felt as much of a ripoff of the Marvel and DC superheroes. I'd be interested to know if you've read it. But the show definitely felt that way. And then as far as the plot goes, I guess I'll mention the plot. It revolves around Utopian, who is played... Oh, Josh Duhamel, that's who the guy is. Across from his wife, Leslie Bibb, who was a superhero in her own right in the show, and I think did a better job than Josh Duhamel, honestly. He is Utopian, who is the main kind of hero guy who basically started this whole thing. His role in the modern part of the show is basically coming to terms with the fact that his code, his quote-unquote code, that he laid out back in, like, the 1930s or something, the code was outdated. It was basically, it was a couple of things, but it was mainly not, don't ever, ever, ever kill anyone. Never, ever, ever. Code is definitely outdated. The world has changed a lot since almost 100 years ago. And it's grown to a point that sometimes you just should not let anybody live because they're too dangerous. The biggest example of this obviously being Black Star, who was this bizarre alien guy that had some kind of genetically attached, like, gear. I don't really understand what he was supposed to be. But he had this clone that went out there and absolutely attacked the heroes and absolutely obliterated, and by obliterated I mean murdered, 3 of the heroes without breaking a sweat before Utopian's son basically looks at the situation and decides the only thing to do is kill him, and so he kills him. There was never a doubt in my mind that he made the right choice, because they said there that he was going to destroy half this state in a nuclear attack, because that was his power. So obviously that was just kill the dude if he's gonna do that. Like, there is no I don't feel like there was ever any, like, right or wrong about this. It was obviously the right thing to do to save the people who were about to get slaughtered. Like, it's, I don't know. So Utopian spends most of the series just being, like, really butthurt that his son killed somebody, and then eventually coming to the conclusion that, oh yeah, sometimes people are really, really, truly bad to the bone, to the core, like the Joker. In DC Comics, he obviously should have been killed a long time ago. The amount of lives that would have been saved if they had just killed him the first time they put him in Arkham. We're getting off track again. But yeah, Jupiter's Legacy, overall, it was fun for sure. I'll definitely watch more of it when it comes out, but it was missing some stuff for sure as well. It was missing on a couple of points. And I'd be very, very curious to see if they change anything to improve it in Season 2. Alright, now let's get into The Bad Batch Episode 2. It premiered this past Friday on Disney+. It is going to be a weekly Friday premiering show, even though they did Episode 1 on May the 4th. That was just for Star Wars Day. It's going to be a Friday show from here on out. And it's also going to be only about half-hour episodes from here on out. It was a double-sized Episode 1. This Episode 2 was about 30 minutes. Which felt about accurate to what it should be based on the material. I only have a really short snippet of things to kind of go over here, based on the plot and the things that we learned. The episode is the Batch, obviously fleeing the Empire with Omega after what happened in the last episode. They head to their buddy Cut, who is a fellow clone deserter, for help getting them away safely. They don't ever really, I don't think we've ever really seen Cut before. If we have seen him, I don't remember. I think he may have been in Clone Wars, but we haven't seen him interacting with the Bad Batch. But they do seem to be extremely familiar with one another. Cut's children also call one of the characters Uncle, so clearly they've known each other for a while. But we don't really get an explanation on that, or how they met. But he does tell them that they need chain codes to get around these days, which is a new security measure from the Empire that you might remember from The Mandalorian. They mentioned it a couple of different times. The Bad Batch ends up heading to steal a number of chain codes for Cut and his family. The codes are physical key fobs, again, from The Mandalorian, so that's why they have to go physically steal this actual thing. Very Star Wars of them to have to do that. Cut's wife, actually, she's also a Twi'lek, and their kids they look almost full of Twi'lek, so Twi'lek genes must be, was something my husband pointed out, is they must be really dominant genes, because they don't look very much like their father at all. This is also the first time, that was pretty cool, we got to see the first time Omega has been off the planet of Kamino, which is of course a water planet. First time she's been off Kamino ever, so she gets to see all kinds of things for the first time, and it's really great to see her kind of be able to explore the world with her, child's mind that she has, even though she is a very mature child. She sees things like dirt, grass, and dryness and heat for the first time ever. She lives on a water planet, never seen this stuff. And she gets pretty close with the kids of Cut, so it makes sense when the Bad Batch try and decide for her, like on her behalf, that she's gonna end up staying with Cut and his family when they head off planet. And she almost does it too, but she returns to the Batch, of course, at the last second, because she clearly has a connection to them because they're all kind of like her in some way. They're all different clones for some reason. This was also probably the first time that she has ever seen people of another species off Kamino, as in like a species that wouldn't regularly appear on Kamino, and was probably her first time being around other kids. I don't imagine they really let her interact with the young male clones, just because I could see that causing a lot of issues. And then when she, at the end of the episode, when Omega gets back to the clones, she removes her little headpiece that she's been wearing so far, and just holds it in her hand. So I have to wonder, you have to wonder, where that, little headpiece comes from, or why it's significant to her, if that was some kind of thing, that she maybe had a caregiver, or the, Kamino locals, whatever their species is, I don't recall. Maybe they gave it to her, I don't really know, but it clearly means a lot to her, and I'm kind of curious to find out the rest of that story. So, Bad Batch Episode 2, again, like I said about the first episode, I'm definitely predicting the same kind of audience reactions to Omega that we got for Ahsoka, a lot of pushback for the first season or so, and then after she kind of ages up and they get used to her being around and kind of more clearly see her role as a character in the show, people will get more on board with her. But right now, I think she's really cool. I'm very curious about her past and her future, and what her role is going to be going forward. To wrap things up today for this episode 17A on this nice, somewhat sunny Monday as I look outside for the first time, let's talk about the trailer that came out this morning. It's for Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which is, of course, Venom 2. There's a lot of splitting opinions here. People seem to be either one way or the other way, and I don't really see a lot of in between, but I'm kind of surprised about, well, I guess not. Well, I'll just explain here. If you haven't seen the trailer, go watch the trailer and come back, so you can kind of figure out what I'm talking about here. And if you've seen Venom, the first Venom movie, you might definitely understand what I'm talking about here. But in my opinion, this looks like it's probably going to be just about as good as the first movie. I don't remember much of the first movie. I think I had been drinking that night, but I remember a lot of going on in my head while I was watching, and a lot of laughing, but not about jokes, if you get my meaning there. Laughing about it being not great. Not even just like not great, just laughing about the choices that were made. It seems that they're going to be kind of going along the same highly overused CGI route for Venom 2. I don't know why they're not doing practical effects. I just think it would be so much better if they did practical effects, because this looks like a video game a little bit. And I can already tell from the trailer that the comedy the comedy of the Venom comics, what there is there, it doesn't translate at all well on screen. You hear the Venom voice and it sounds honestly stupid. It doesn't I don't think it works, having that deep, grisly voice, and I don't think it works. That's one side. That's me and my husband and everybody we've talked to personally about it. All pretty much have that same exact feeling. And then you go on Twitter, and you see people losing their absolute goddamn minds about this trailer. People are posting reaction videos, which, how self-absorbed can you be? And they're posting, like, oh my god, everything's perfect! It's gotta be Carnage stands, right? I can't figure out. I know Donny Cates has some really crazy stands as well, and he was doing the Venom series. And I know Carnage has some, like, hardcore stands for some reason. But that's gotta be it, right? Like, I don't think this looks very good, and people are saying that it looks like it's going to be the best movie of the year. How do you have that kind of discrepancy? How do you have that difference in opinions on? That's a big difference. I'm very curious, people who are listening still, what is your opinion on this trailer? Because I honestly think it looks like hot garbage, for the most part. But I will put out some things that you may notice in the trailer if you care. There is a Stan Lee magazine cover at the bodega at the beginning of the trailer, kind of, that Venom, like, reaches out. That's another thing, he reaches out of Eddie's back, which doesn't translate at all well to on screen with the CGI that they used. That doesn't work out very well, but he reaches out and, like, straightens the Stan Lee magazine. There is a Daily Bugle paper that has the same exact Daily Bugle header from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. Andy Serkis has apparently, since already this morning, revealed that the actor Stephen Graham is playing a cop named Mulligan, which is relevant because in the comics, Thompson, who is one of the Life Foundation symbiotes, his first host is Patrick Mulligan, so potentially going to be seeing Thompson in this, which makes me think that potentially we might be seeing other Life Foundation symbiotes, and as I don't think this is really high quality cinema, please don't put Scream in this. I don't want to see them mess up Scream that badly. Anyway, there also seems to be, Cletus Cassidy. I don't know if he was referencing Spider-Man, or if that was just meant to be him referencing Venom, but it just seemed that Spider-Man, exists in this universe. And then obviously Woody Harrelson is playing Cletus Cassidy. He's a fantastic actor, which is one of the things that's keeping me interested in actually seeing this movie. And then Carnage, for what we do briefly see in the trailer, looks, he looks good for CGI, but I do think that it would have been a lot better if they had gone for a little bit of practical effects. I understand that with you have symbiotes, it's a little hard, but all you had to do is give them, like, a head thing. I don't know, I just think the CGI looks very video game, and it's gonna keep... I do remember from the first movie, it kept taking me out of the movie because the CGI just looked so fake, and I think based on this trailer, it also looks really fake in the second movie. Maybe they're gonna improve it. I doubt it, though, because that's what the first movie looked like. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Let There Be Carnage trailer. I'm really curious if you are pumped up for this movie. Let me know why. I'm honest to God curious why. And that wraps up this week's episode 17A of Sensational She-Geek, live from Yancey Street. I believe we hit 30 episodes on this past Friday, so congratulations to this podcast for that. I will be back for the next podcast episode this Friday, the 14th, where I'll be talking about my comic book picks, things that I really enjoyed from this week's comics, or things that I felt were noteworthy and worth mentioning from this week's comic books coming out tomorrow and Wednesday. And I will also, of course, be talking about whatever other stuff in the comic book news and culture and movies and TV shows and things, because, like always, it is a great time to be a nerd, because nerd culture has become kind of cool. Even Hollywood thinks so. So we made it, boys. We did it, boys and girls. Hit the problematic alarm on myself. Thank you for listening if you've made it this far to my insane ramblings of my interests. You can find me online. My website is sensationalshegeek.weebly.com. My Instagram, where I post solely about comics, even in my stories where I sometimes put my cat in food, but it's mostly comics. Because that is the public persona that I would like to have out there. That is, the name that is Anna with the Comics, because that is my name. And then if you want to find me on Twitter, my Twitter is Savage She-Geek. So give all that a check out if you are curious about it. I post all kinds of stuff on all kinds of places, so definitely check that out. And this podcast is, of course, available everywhere that podcast streams except Pandora, including YouTube. So be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, whatever it is that you can do on your method of listening. Do the thing, because then hopefully more people will be able to view this and be interested in it, and good things will happen for all of us, Like I said, I will be back Friday the 14th for episode 17B. I hope to see you there, or to hear you there, whatever it is that happens with podcasts. In the meantime, have a productive, stress-free, as most as possible week. Focus on something that you would like to have changed in your life, and focus on getting that done. Positive reinforcement and visualization and all that good stuff. And don't take things out on other people when you get frustrated, and definitely always get sweaty about comics.